There's a certain kind of man who, after the worst day of his week, does not call a friend. He does not text his therapist. He does not sit down to talk about his feelings. He puts on his jacket, walks out to his bike, and rides. No destination, no plan, just the road, the noise, and his own head. And here is the strange part. By the time he gets back, something in him is different, calmer, clearer, like something heavy got left somewhere on that road. That moment is worth looking at closely, because the ride was never really about the ride. When a man gets on a motorcycle, something happens in his brain that does not happen when he sits on a couch and talks. It does not happen in a waiting room. It does not happen while scrolling through advice videos at midnight. It happens out there, with wind in his face, a machine under him that demands his full attention, and zero room for distraction. Most people, when they feel overwhelmed, look for someone to talk to, and that is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with talking. But some men, somewhere along the way, found something that worked faster for them than words ever did. From the outside, that looks like avoidance, like running away from the problem instead of facing it. But for a lot of these men, it is actually the opposite. It is one of the only times all week they are not running from anything at all. Here is what is actually going on. Riding a motorcycle forces your brain into something called flow state. You may have heard the term before. It is what happens when a task is hard enough and dangerous enough that your brain cannot afford to think about anything else. One wrong move on a bike and you are on the ground, so your mind drops everything. The argument from this morning, the bill you have not paid, the conversation you have been avoiding, all of it gets pushed out because your brain only has room for the road right now. For a few minutes or a few hours, the noise in his head just stops. Not because he solved anything, because his brain literally could not hold on to it while staying alive on two wheels. Think about how rare that actually is in modern life. Most things we do let us multitask. You can watch TV and check your phone. You can eat lunch and answer emails. You can drive on a quiet road and still be replaying an argument in your head. Almost nothing forces a full reset anymore. A motorcycle does. It is one of the very few activities left where your brain is not allowed to wander because wandering has a real cost. And that forced focus, even if it only lasts an hour, can feel like the first real break a man has had in days. If you think that sounds healthy, comment 1. If you think it is just a man avoiding his problems with a fancy hobby, comment 0. I want to know what you actually think, because this one splits people right down the middle. Now here is where it gets deeper. A lot of men who ride this way did not start riding because someone told them it was good for their mental health. Most of them couldn't even explain why they keep doing it. They just know that after a hard week, the bike calls to them, and they go. Some of them learned to ride from a father, an uncle, an older friend who never once said the words mental health, but somehow taught them that when life gets loud, you find something that makes you focus. Nobody sat them down and explained stress relief. What got passed down was simpler than that. It was a way of dealing with hard feelings without having to name them out loud. And that's actually a big deal, because a huge number of men were never taught how to talk about what's going on inside their heads. Nobody showed them the words. So instead, they found something else. A way to process without talking, a way to feel better without ever saying, "I feel bad." This is where people get it wrong about these guys. They see a man who rides for hours alone and they assume he's shutting people out. They think he has no interest in dealing with his problems, that he would rather run from them on a bike than sit with a professional and work them through. But that's not what is actually happening underneath. What is actually happening is this. The ride gives him something therapy sometimes cannot give fast enough: control. On a motorcycle, every single thing depends on him. His hands, his balance, his focus. Nobody else is steering. Nobody else can mess it up. For a guy whose whole week might feel completely out of his hands, a job he can't control, a relationship that feels unfair, a future that feels uncertain, 2 hours where he is fully and completely in charge of everything that happens to him is not nothing, it's everything. Psychologists have a name for this kind of belief. It is the idea that what happens to you depends mostly on you, not on luck or other people. Some men feel like they lost that feeling everywhere else in life, but the second they get on that bike, it comes right back. Twist the throttle, lean into the turn, brake at the right second. Every outcome is honest. Every outcome is earned. There is no boss who takes credit, no ex who gets the last word, just him and the result of what he just did. There is one more piece to this, and it might be the most important one. Riding a motorcycle is one of the only things left in a man's life where the feedback is completely real. At work, did that project actually go well? Hard to say, depends who you ask. In a relationship, was that the right call? Still arguing about it months later. But on a bike, if you take a corner wrong, you know immediately. If you nail it, you know immediately. There is no gray area, no politics, no, well, it depends. Just a clean, honest answer. Every single time. For a man living in a world where almost nothing gives him a straight answer anymore, that kind of honesty is addictive in the healthiest possible way. So when a man chooses a long ride over a therapy appointment, it is not always because he thinks therapy is weak or pointless or not for him, even though that is sometimes part of it too. A lot of the time, it is because the bike is already doing something therapy is supposed to do. It clears his head, it gives him space from his thoughts, it reminds him that he is still capable, still in control, still someone who can handle hard things. Now, here's the honest part nobody wants to say out loud. The ride is not a replacement for everything. It does not fix a relationship that is falling apart. It does not pay the bills. It does not have a conversation that needs to happen. What it does is give a man 2 hours of peace so he can go back and actually deal with those things with a clearer head instead of a frustrated one. The real question is not whether riding a motorcycle counts as real therapy. The real question is whether a man has built any space in his life, on a bike, in a gym, on a trail, in a garage, anywhere, where his mind can finally go quiet for a little while. Because the men who have that space are not avoiding their problems forever. They are just buying themselves enough peace to face those problems without falling apart. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. Therapy works for a lot of people, and if you've never tried it, it might genuinely help you. But therapy is not the only path to feeling better, and it never was. What actually matters is whether you have something, anything, that gives your mind a break, gives you a sense of control, and gives you honest feedback about yourself. For some men, that's a counselor's office. For others, it's 2 wheels and an empty road. Neither one is wrong. What is wrong is having nothing at all.